What's going on YouTube? So the MDX has long been a hit for Acura, and as a matter of fact, it's also long been the best-selling luxury 3-row SUV. But it's also never had a real challenge mounted by its nemesis Lexus, since the short-lived and ill-fated RXL was too small to truly compete. However, that is changing now, with the introduction of the all-new Lexus TX nameplate. This new luxury SUV is promising to take down the likes of the MDX by prioritizing space over all else. So, was it successful? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Now, like always, let's quickly establish the pricing and trim levels right from the start. Beginning with the MDX, we have the MDX Advance, which is the top trim level outside of the performance-oriented Type S. Pricing has steadily risen over the last few years, to a total of $65,500. Moving to the new TX, the equivalent model, and what will be the best seller, is the TX 350. We selected the luxury trim for equal features to the Advance MDX, and after a few options, its total price is a couple $1,000s richer. By the way, if you want to get the best price from local dealerships and access to invoice pricing info for these two models or any new vehicle, we have a tool on our website to do just that. Check the link in the description for more info. Now, as for this comparison, it will be conducted in an objective way. We have done our best to weigh the points awarded throughout in major and minor categories, but at the end of the comparison, we will sum up with our thoughts and revisit the price difference for a value assessment. With that being said, let's get into it. Starting here with the exteriors, both models represent their respective brand's signature designs, but with a little twist in the case of the TX. It has the famous spindle grille like every Lexus, but it is now a unified spindle, meaning that it is entirely body color. The MDX's diamond pentagon grille remains, as do the dual-eye LED headlights. The TX deviates again by not having the signature triple beam LED headlights. But regardless, all parts of its headlight cluster are LED just like the MDX, and both of them also have LED fog lamps. Moving to the side, the new TX is going to have about a 5-inch advantage on length, and you'll definitely want to stick around until later when we compare all the interior measurements as well. As far as the wheels, the MDX has 20-inch alloy wheels and the TX has the optional 22-inch alloys. As we move around to the back, the TX has a floating roof effect. And as far as the rear, both have small upper spoilers, exposed wipers, and fully LED tail lamp clusters. Only the MDX has exposed exhaust outlets. Now checking out some of the individual features. Both of their mirrors are fully loaded with heating, blind spot monitoring, power folding, and auto dimming. Both their warranties are exactly the same as well, including the complimentary maintenance. Now, one of the things both Japanese luxury brands excel at is including all active safety features as standard equipment on all trim levels. Additionally, they both have convenience features, such as traffic jam assist functions. It is worth noting that the TX has additional hands-free functionality under 25 miles per hour, and it also has remote smart parking via your smartphone. But the luxury and comfort of the cabins are of far more importance than the exteriors, so let's get to that. But first,
if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
As we walk towards the interiors, both models have smart entry as you would expect, plus the available digital key system in the Lexus. While this doesn't really change anything in the day-to-day, be aware that the TX does have electronic door handles, so the handle itself won't move when you grab it. Now let's take a second to take in the interiors, which both have their own unique feeling of luxury. The seats themselves are one of those luxurious elements, since they are wrapped in semi-aniline and Milano leather in the Lexus and Acura respectively. We have an equal number but different kinds of adjustment, and both have heating, cooling, and memory. But as we get inside, this gives us an opportunity to assess the major category of overall material quality. Like I said a second ago, they're not very similar in the material choices they have made, with the TX focusing on leatherette and suede in the areas you might touch. The MDX, though, not only has more visual contrast, but it also has more diversity of materials used. It has leatherette, real metal speaker grills, and generous use of real open-pore wood trim, which is something the Lexus only has in one small area. After startup, you'll see 12.3-inch digital gauge clusters on both, as well as head-up displays. Both steering wheels will be leather-wrapped and heated, as well as power adjusting. But that takes us to interior storage and functionality here in the front of the cabin. While the center consoles are pretty much the same sizes, it's the other areas where the TX excels against the MDX. It has removable cup holders for a multi-function bin, and it has more space in front of them with this arrangement. Now moving on to the shifters, both of them are electronic ones with paddle shifters on the steering wheels. And when in reverse, both also have 360-degree camera systems. I mentioned the speaker grills earlier, but, of course, there is more to a great sounding sound system than that. So let's go ahead and take a sample. Overall, both sound systems are fantastic and offer balanced, full sound that really pops. Moving on to climate. Both models have 3-zone automatic climate control systems on board. The TX's controls are largely inside the screen, but both models have physical toggles or knobs for the most important adjustment, the temperature. The biggest con of using screen climate controls, though, is that they take up about a third of the TX's 14-inch display, meaning that the usable area is no larger than the MDX with its 12.3-inch display. Size aside, the displays have an important difference. The TX's is a touchscreen, while the MDX's is not, as you might have clued in by how far away it is mounted. In the Acura, you have to use the odd 1-to-1 mapped touchpad, which is something you can get used to, but is definitely harder to use. Features-wise, both have navigation and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Last but certainly not least, for the front of the interiors, the Lexus has a digital camera rearview mirror, and both have large panoramic sunroofs that open up. But now it's time for the back of the interiors, an equally important space for the family members and belongings that you'll probably be hauling around in these too. Starting with leg and headroom measures in the second row, the TX has a small advantage, but not by more than the 5% threshold required to score a point. Both feel nice and spacious, sitting behind a 5'9" driving position. Jumping into amenities, there are rear climate controls, vents, 2 USB ports, and sunshades on both. Both their seats are also heated, but after this is where we start to see divergence. First of all, the MDX has a household power outlet. But the most important distinguishing difference is the MDX's multi-function seat. You have 3 seats back here, but you can fold down the center seat for a center console, or you can completely remove it for on-demand captain's chairs. In comparison, you choose between either captain's chairs or bench seating in the TX. And if you want the available rear seat ventilation, you have to choose the captain's chairs. Let's head to the next row of seats, which both have easy access sliding systems. First off, both have 2 seats back here to maximize comfort instead of 3. But once you climb back there, you will immediately notice that the extra exterior length on the TX was applied here. It has about 14% more legroom, which makes it comfortable for even adults back here, something that cannot be said about the MDX. Lastly, both have USB ports, but vents are strangely missing from the MDX. Now let's get into the cargo areas. After the hands-free tailgates open up, you will find a tremendous size discrepancy. In all three seating configurations, the TX has the advantage, and that only grows as the third and second rows are folded, ending with 30% more space in the maximum configuration. MDX's space figures are competitive with other rivals, but the TX simply beats out everything else. We also measured the cargo length from the front row and came up with 89 inches versus 81 inches in the MDX. The last thing I want to mention here is that the third row is power folding on the Lexus. Alright, that's it for the interiors, so now let's take this battle to the streets. Under the hood, there are fundamental differences between the MDX and the TX. In standard configuration, the MDX comes with a traditional 3.5-liter V6 engine, while the TX has a new 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. This means that the MDX has the horsepower advantage, and the TX has a torque advantage. Alright, so taking off with this MDX, the thing that people love, or one of the things that people love most about it, is just having a smooth and powerful V6 powertrain, and that does continue for 2024. Like we mentioned at the spec dump, you're looking at a 3.5-liter V6. It's going to be making 290 horsepower, 267 pound-feet of torque. So those are good and healthy numbers for this segment of vehicle.
Torque really pushes you back in your seat.
Yeah, totally feels adequate. I mean, if you're wondering, oh goodness, this is a big 3-row SUV, and it is, combine that with a 4-cylinder engine, is it going to feel underpowered? The answer to that, I think, to me feels like no. I think that it definitely doesn't feel underpowered. What you might not like as much as the sound of the engine, perhaps, because it is a 4-cylinder. It's not going to sound maybe as silky smooth as a V6. Transmission-wise, we have an 8-speed automatic in the TX, and a 10-speed automatic in the MDX. More gears don't necessarily mean better, but in this case, the MDX seems to shift smoother with less head bobble.
Such a refined sound. And just a reminder of what Drew said in the spec dump earlier, all MDXs will come with standard 10-speed automatic transmission.
As I was saying, we have an 8-speed automatic transmission that works quite nicely here with this 350 model. We're just in the standard drive mode right now. Put your foot down, you wait like a little half beat there, but it gets you into the right gear, gets you up to speed nicely. Both of them also have advanced all-wheel drive systems. But it's definitely not all about speed, since comfort is more important for luxury family crossovers. In this regard, both absolutely nail the ride quality, with extremely plush rides that isolate out all but the largest potholes. As you would expect, neither model is particularly sporty, and both have light steering setups. Because of the double wishbone front suspension on the MDX, its handling is tighter and has a more controlled feeling.
But I do want to just also talk about your ride quality. You're probably curious about that because this segment is all about just family comfort and all of those things. It really knocks it out of the park. There's a lot of really rough roads down here in Austin. There's a bump right there in the road. It does a great job of soaking it up.
I kind of talked about it a little earlier, but I do want to revisit the ride quality just to really hammer in how comfortable this is. It is insanely comfortable. The way they've tuned the suspension here on the advanced model, you just kind of feel like you're floating down the road, and when you see potholes and stuff like that, it just absorbs it nicely. This is not an air suspension. You can get the air suspension on the Type S, but totally unnecessary. If comfort is what you're really looking for, this has got it in spades. In addition to having comfy rides, let's talk about noise levels in the cabins. Both achieve very impressive ratings under 54 decibels at 55 miles per hour. And the scores are so close that the difference is well under the 1 decibel difference that the average adult can discern.
All right, we're going to be at 53.9 decibels. And for any of you who may doubt the accuracy of our readings, this is the exact same reading as we got on the 23 Acura MDX. So here's the consistency.
That's right. All right, official Car Confections sound level reading. Took a little bit longer. I wanted to make sure we were still on the smoother part of the pavement, and the fan speed was on 153.7 decibels.
And lastly, for fuel economy, the TX's turbocharged engine does help it achieve about 9% better overall fuel economy. The TX also offers 2 available hybrid models for those of you who want to achieve even better MPGs. So the TX saves on fuel, but it's the MDX that rings in $1,644 less expensive in this comparison. Based on our scale, that's worth a half point per $1,000 of difference, or 1 point to the MDX for value. But as always, I'll remind you that if money doesn't matter as much to you, then feel free to disregard these points. So it turns out that size does matter, at least in terms of luxury 3-row SUVs. Now, the TX is our objective winner today, but let's talk about who should be your winner. So the MDX will be your winner if you prefer a traditional V6 experience. It'll also be your winner if you prefer the more premium interior that's and the materials that are used inside of the cabin, as well as that unique multi-function removable center seat, which is something the TX is not offering.
And when it comes to the TX, that should be your winner, of course, if space matters most to you. It has by far more cargo capacity. It has a much better third row as well when it comes to space. So if you're utilizing that a lot, you certainly will appreciate that in the TX. Not to mention it's also power folding. Additionally, you're going to have better technology in the TX. That big display with wireless CarPlay, wireless Android Auto is a lot easier to use with the touchscreen. So certainly the tech is a little bit better in that model. But guys, we want to know which model you're going to be taking in the comments down below. Is it going to be the TX or is it going to be the MDX? We want to know your thoughts. Also, we want to remind you, if you're looking to buy a new vehicle, we have a tool on carconfections.com/newcarquotes that will connect you with local dealers in your area to get you the best price on your new vehicle. Additionally, it's going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool for dealer negotiation. And if you'd like to take advantage of that, a link is provided in our video description. Also, we'd like to thank you if you're a current subscriber and loyal fan of the channel. You do make this all possible, and we are very appreciative. If you are not a subscriber, we would really like to encourage you to hit that subscribe button down below, because by subscribing, you allow us to make more videos like this. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.